I'm Mike Balaban. I'm 66, had a career in finance. I'm here to talk about a lifelong passion for and involvement in amateur photography. I never had any training. I just picked up a single lens reflex camera when I was 24, started shooting mostly on vacations. But along with my travels, I not only took photos of artistic scenery and friends and family I was traveling with, I took lots of photos of people that I found attractive, especially men. I came out in 1976 in Washington, D.C. In a very conservative time. Back then, people were being evicted from their families, from their jobs, from their churches, just for being known as gay. So even if you thought you were gay, you didn't want others to know it. It wasn't an easy time. I hated my job. I didn't have any gay friends. And how to explore was beyond me. I heard about the gay pride parades that had begun to take place. I wanted to see them, but I was deathly afraid of anybody catching me there. So I went the first time in June of 1978 to Fifth Avenue in Manhattan and stood along the sidewalk edge and watched everything, looking around me to make sure nobody knew I was there. So I wandered among all these people, a stranger, knowing no one. I edged my way through the crowd and got up close to the stage, and there was legendary Grace Jones, the disco diva herself, all dressed in pink in her Pink Panther outfit, prowling on the stage, climbing all over the speakers, and I got a photo of her up close vamping for the crowd. Being straight at work and closeted and wearing a business suit and hanging around with a bunch of other preppy, Ivy League, WASPy graduates who all were interested in the same straight, preppy, WASPy things was one of my lives. It was really an era where you had to be absolutely careful about everything you said so that no one would have any idea, because your job, your bonus, your reputation would depend upon it. Being gay was considered unacceptable. So in 1979, I agreed to separate from my job. I sublet my home in New York. I took my little 1974 Celica and I drove across country. I'm here in this photo, which I kind of feel proud of, because there I am, grinning at the world. Here I am, take it or leave it, with my little Panama hat, and doffing my hat to the crowd. But I was about to embark on this journey that I had no idea where it would lead me, but it would lead me to who I would ultimately become. I stopped in every major city that had a gay bar and went in and took notes on them. And I can tell you how many visits I went into these places and what I thought of each one. And here I've got little up, down signs for what I liked or didn't like, or neutral is to the right, off to the side. So for me, this was cataloging. Let me see what it's like to be gay in Little Rock. What's it like to be gay in Lubbock? What's it like to be gay in Houston versus San Diego or San Francisco? Until I did this, I had no clue about how to approach someone in a bar or to respond when they approached me. I was nervous and self-conscious and anxious and feeling unattractive, which now it's kind of amazing for me to realize, because, I was as decent looking as the average guy, if not better, but it's all what you feel inside, and exposed to this new subculture where I had no experience nor any bearings. I was really frightened. Over time, I began realizing I had this collection and posting them initially on Facebook and then on Instagram. And there was really a much greater reception than I might have anticipated, particularly surprisingly among millennial LGBTQ youth, a lot of whom are eager and hungry for some sense of where we came from as a community. And these photos go back really to the mid-70s. The ones that seem to get the greatest response are from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But more than that, it's the stories. We lived in an era where, we had to wait weeks for people to respond to our personal ads. We didn't know how and where to meet each other as gay men and women. So we would have to go to certain bars, or certain restaurants, because that's where we would like to meet each other. And things happen in a much slower time. Oh, Black's Beach, 1979, I was arrested for running in the nude with the boy that I was seeing while I was taking a cross-country trip and learning how to be gay. So the first night I went out to this huge disco in San Diego called the West Coast Production Company, or WCPC, affectionately known as the Wussy Pussy. I met a bartender there who bought me a beer and picked me up and took me home, and was a sweetheart from a very small town near the southern redneck area I grew up in, and we kind of bonded. And for the 2 or 3 months I was in the West Coast, basically he would be my home. I'd go to my brother's, then I'd go to his place, and I'd go swimming with him, and then I'd go to San Francisco, and then I'd go back to the bar. And so he was like my boyfriend for the summer. By the time that experience was over, and I drove back across the US and ended up in New York in late September, October, I knew how to make gay friends. I knew how to do that in the nighttime and then go to work during the day and keep those worlds separate. I was no longer befuddled and unclear on how I could manage my life. I was able to work during the day and be closeted and have no problem with that, and then go out at night and go to a bar and meet my friends and basically integrate my life, or at least begin to. But for one summer, we were connected, and ultimately Bo would pass away from AIDS. You know, if you look at what's being documented, and there's a lot of gay history being documented, it's all about Stonewall riots, Harvey Milk's assassination, the same-sex marriage fight. And those are all important stories worthy of all the attention they can get. But what about what it was like for the average person? We had our own language, our own gaydar, our own way of operating right in the midst of the straight world, and they didn't have a clue. Who's writing about that? Where's that being preserved? And so millennial youth are really hungry to have a sense of what was it like? Where do you come from? Where do we come from? By the early 1980s, I was in a new Wall Street job on a trading floor. Early 1983, I took my first week to Rio for Carnival. I stayed in the Lighthouse Court, which was a bed and breakfast. I took a photo of me. I'm in it here, and I'll show it. I'm wearing my Speedo with my sunglasses and my hat on, and with my brand new Sony Walkman in the picture. And for the first time, I was kind of owning my life. I felt proud of who I was. I was able to be open again in certain times and places about who I was and what I was into. And this really captured me at the height of that moment. By and large, you know, gay rights are here, and you can operate pretty much anywhere. But the value of having a gay space to go to. The bars that I used to hang out in, there were hundreds. There are now probably a quarter or a third as many in New York City as there were 30 or 40 years ago. They're closing because rents are rising. People aren't going to them anymore. Why? Because they're meeting online through apps like Grindr and Scruff. Well, as a gay man or woman, when you enter a room, for the rest of your life, you're going to be different. You're going to be part of the 5% minority, no matter how equal you are and accepted you are. You're going to have to come out over and over again. Having a place where you can go to where you don't have to go through that introduction every time, where you can be with people who know what it's like to have been through what you've been through, is important, and we need to make time and effort and space to save those so they don't disappear from our lives. As a 15-year-old closeted gay boy living in a deeply and unfortunately conservative part of the South, your stories of perseverance all these years ago, before it was as easy as it is today, are truly an inspiration. Thank you for giving us all a glimpse of your life. Then the second comment, thank you, sir. I keep telling myself that after I told him it will get better. I'd love to talk to you sometime and hear more of these amazing stories you have to tell. Nothing has ever made me feel more content or less alone than reading your posts. Thank you.
What does that mean to you?
I just got chills. It makes me feel grateful, hopeful, you know, that you can change and impact another person's life, particularly somebody who feels that there may not be hope, at least until they get to the next stage where somebody else will take over. You know, life's kind of meant to be what it is. It happens on a track, and you can't really regret how it happened. All you can do is look back and kind of be glad you made it through and that you have these memories to share.